What happens when a nation refuses to become second? In 1957, that question stopped being theoretical. It became urgent. A metallic sphere called Sputnik crossed the night sky, launched by the Soviet Union. And in doing so, it pierced more than the atmosphere. It pierced American confidence. For the first time in the modern era, the United States was not leading the frontier of human progress. The beeping signal from orbit was small, but its message was deafening. The future could belong to someone else. And for a country that had emerged from World War II as the world's strongest economic and military power, that possibility was unacceptable. The Cold War was not merely a political disagreement. It was a silent contest of systems, ideologies, and technological supremacy. Rockets that could launch satellites could also launch missiles. Space was no longer science fiction. It was strategy. In response to Sputnik, the United States did not panic publicly, but behind the scenes it moved with remarkable speed. In 1958, a new agency was formed with a singular mission: reclaim leadership beyond the Earth.
You can be justly proud of the fact that your past achievements have made NACA the choice of all governmental agencies out of which to build the new agency.
That agency was NASA. It represented more than laboratories and launch pads. It represented a national decision that America would define the next era of human achievement. The investment was massive. Billions of dollars flowed into research, engineering, and education. Universities expanded their science programs. A generation of young Americans was inspired to become physicists, mathematicians, pilots, and engineers. The space race was not just happening in Houston or Cape Canaveral. It was unfolding in classrooms, factories, and living rooms across the country. The mission was clear. America would not watch the future from the sidelines. Then, in 1961, President John F. Kennedy stood before Congress and made a declaration that stunned the world.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
The United States would land a man on the moon before the decade was out. It was a bold promise made at a time when America had barely sent a human into orbit. The technology did not yet exist. The risks were enormous. Failure would mean humiliation on a global stage. But the commitment transformed ambition into inevitability. The objective was no longer abstract leadership. It was a footprint on the moon.
The possibility that trouble may develop with the Atlas or the Redstone during the countdown or during the takeoff is looked squarely in the eye by the astronauts and the engineers behind Project Mercury.
The road to that footprint was paved with trial, error, and sacrifice. Rockets exploded during testing. Missions encountered technical failures. Astronauts trained under conditions that pushed human endurance to its limits. Every launch carried the weight of national expectation. Yet each setback refined the engineering, strengthened the resolve, and sharpened the focus. This was not a sprint. It was a relentless climb toward history. On July 20th, 1969, that climb reached its summit. Apollo 11 descended toward the lunar surface, while hundreds of millions of people around the world watched in silence. When Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon and delivered his historic words, it was more than a symbolic act. It was proof that the United States could set an impossible goal and achieve it within a single decade. The American flag planted in lunar soil was not merely fabric, it was a statement. Innovation, determination, and national unity had carried humanity to another world. But the true victory of the space race was not limited to a single moment or a single mission. The technologies developed during that era reshaped daily life on Earth. Satellite communications revolutionized global connectivity. Advances in microelectronics accelerated the development of modern computers. Navigation systems laid the foundation for GPS. Medical technologies improved diagnostics and patient care. The race to the moon compressed decades of innovation into a few extraordinary years. The benefits extended far beyond national pride. They altered the trajectory of modern civilization. NASA's achievement also solidified America's reputation as the world's leading engine of technological progress.
At a Washington news conference, officials introduced 7 carefully chosen military test pilots as America's first spacemen.
The message was clear. When challenged, the United States did not retreat. It organized, invested, and advanced. The space race demonstrated a model of national mobilization that combined public vision with private ingenuity. It showed that democratic institutions, free enterprise, and scientific curiosity could outpace authoritarian command structures in the most demanding arena imaginable. Today, as rockets once again launch from American soil and new missions aim beyond the moon toward Mars, the legacy of that era remains alive. The space race was never solely about defeating a rival. It was about defining the possible. It was about proving that when confronted with uncertainty, America chooses action. When confronted with competition, it chooses innovation. And when confronted with the vastness of space, it chooses to explore. What happens when a nation refuses to become second? History provides the answer. It builds. It leads. It reaches farther than anyone thought possible. And in doing so, it does not just change its own destiny. It changes the world.